Hi, I'm Jenny Dozier, and this is my Community Health Needs Assessment project. Just to start off, to summarize the goal and objectives and hypothetical evaluation for this type of assessment, the overall goal of my project was to take a closer look at how we could improve student success by helping to address and understand basic needs and securities in our community college population. My current institution is Tidewater Community College in Hampton Roads, and so by looking at particularly food insecurities in our students, could we help to improve completion and graduation rates, for instance, by helping to ensure that their unmet needs are being addressed? Data collection is going to be particularly important both qualitatively and quantitatively here to give us a broader picture of where students' basic needs are, where those vulnerabilities are, and how we may be able to see better opportunities to grow student support services, expand what we already have available to students, and also to create new services and resources for students by addressing unmet needs. This is something that is not only an important population need in a vulnerable population for community college students, but it also helps to address other missions and goals of our institution, such as improving our retention rates and completion and graduation rates. And those completion rates are directly tied to our funding, which allows us to create and maintain additional support services for students. We have a very diverse community college population throughout the Virginia Community College system. And at my institution at TCC, we also have a very diverse population with 4 campuses spanning across Hampton Roads. We have a total head count that generally ranges from about 23 to 26,000 students. Right now, we're hovering around 24,000 full-time enrolled students. We also have a large military population and first-generation college student population as well. And we also have a significant portion of dual-enrolled students who are still in high school, and they are coming to us for some of their general education requirements as well. The main health issue of concern with this particular assessment would be to better assess and understand the level of food insecurity in our students. There's some recent research that's come out from the Virginia Community College system that reports 1 in 3 of our students stated that they did experience a pretty severe level of food insecurity. The Virginia Department of Social Services defines food insecurity as a lack of access to enough food for a healthy lifestyle. And we know that our community college students, as research shows us and as we can see, those of us on the front lines in 2-year institutions see that there are greater insecurities in that 2-year degree granting institution setting compared to other higher education settings, particularly for marginalized students. They have some additional challenges on their plate. The primary overall objective with this type of assessment would be to ensure that we are adequately assessing the needs of our students and determining whether they meet those criteria for federal definitions and measurement for food insecurity. Our community college students represent a more vulnerable population of students. We have non-traditional students. We have students who are raising families, those who are already in the workforce, so they are balancing the demands of jobs and family life. And so finding ways to reduce barriers to their academic success continues to be a very important mission at our institution. We know that inadequate nutrition leads to health concerns, leads to work performance concerns, and of course, helping students to achieve those graduation requirements and the opportunities to transfer and continue on to the next portion of their educational journey, which again, for our health profession students is primarily important, as we know that we definitely need them in the workforce. The sooner the better. A little bit about the hypothetical data collection and analysis that would go along with this project. Right now, the gold standard for understanding and collecting data on food insecurity really comes from work being done at the University of Wisconsin, their Hope Lab study research. They've coined it the hashtag Real College Project, and they use measures developed by the USDA, our Department of Housing and Urban Development, and Department of Education. And so this is a collection of tried and true, reliable, and valid questions and assessments that are being used across the country to better understand food insecurity in college populations. Getting that qualitative data from students is going to be important as well. They're going to be pivotal to understanding this issue and how to improve it. So student focus groups, and then meeting also with local community partners, nonprofits, food banks, for instance, and asking those important questions from students in terms of how likely they would be to use particular resources on campus, how desirable these are for them, how and what best way to ensure that they can access them is going to be very important. The data is primarily going to be used to begin with for comparison purposes. And the reason I say that is prior to COVID semesters in 2019 at TCC, we did assess some of these initial baseline understandings of food insecurities in our students. And this is just a snippet of some data that I pulled from a report I worked on with our provost office at the time. And we did notice, we were able to conclude that because nearly half of our students reported worrying about enough money to be able to afford healthy meals, not just any type of meals, but healthy meals that are going to sustain them and give them the energy they need for a healthy lifestyle. That based off of the data that we gleaned, we were able to see clearly that our students did meet at the time federal definitions for food insecurity. And so this data helped us and gave us the support and the argument that we needed to ensure the funding to create our first food bank, which is available at MacArthur Mall in downtown Norfolk, Virginia. But keeping a current pulse in this issue is going to be continually important because we know things have changed since COVID. Students have other issues and challenges on their plates, and so we want to make sure that we're getting a more current picture of where students are today. There are several stakeholders that were involved in this at the beginning of this ideation of this project and organization, but also moving forward with this type of assessment, it would be very important to have, again, our student leaders and organizations helping us to get a pulse and get a sense of where students' needs are and how they would best access these resources. So getting student government involved, getting our different departments at the college level, deans of student life and conduct, our student empowerment and resource center, which is a great resource already for our students. Getting faculty, staff, and volunteers, looking for educators and other opportunities to even add on to what we already have for students, whether it is forming another food bank at a new location. We do have one in terms of physical space already, but can it also be adding educational resources, nutrition classes, and how to budget for various food costs and things of that nature. But taking a closer look at interventions via what we have now, looking to our sister colleges throughout the system to see what can we borrow off their homework, can they copy off of our homework, who is seeing success and how can we share and ensure that we're sharing with each other where those successes are so that we can all benefit from them and implement them as well. In terms of implementation, I think the level of intervention, the model that really speaks to this type of assessment and what it would entail would be to take a better look at the trans-theoretical model, which we learned about in our course earlier on, because this is a particular model that helps us to account for those changing behaviors where there's lots of different steps involved. So you have students who are going to have different levels of needs, different levels of supports already. And so in terms of preparing the action behind it, and then particularly the maintenance involved in this type of assessment, I think that the trans-theoretical model would really be the way to help understand and process what this type of project would entail. So we have students who have varying levels of comfort. We already saw this from our previous data that was collected in terms of accessing these services. So this could be a model that helps us to address those changing behaviors for individuals who are at different levels of desirability or support in accessing those services. And this is a timeline that honestly would start off over the course of an academic year, just in terms of disseminating those surveys, collecting data, analyzing it, making sure that we're cleaning it up and understanding what it's telling us. And honestly, I could tell you what my timeline would be, but in academia, oftentimes admin and those who are in control of the budget have their own timelines. But I would say that this would initially be over the course of an academic year, just to get an initial picture of what's happening. Documenting and communication would probably be the easier part of this type of assessment. I mean, we have so many different websites that individuals and organizations we partner with in our local communities, being able to post and share at our sister colleges on their websites and social media accounts, our own social media accounts, those email blasts that we're all used to. There's lots of community meetings, whether they are our partners and nonprofits that we work with already here, college-wide faculty types of meetings, and those with our various partners, and the meetings in which we're training individuals who already volunteer and work at our food bank that we have established now. To evaluate the progress in this type of project would involve taking a look at those needs assessments, those assessments based off of, again, federal guidelines, to take a look at how they compare to our prior data that we've already collected. Taking a look at graduation and certificate and course completion rates, taking a look at drop and withdrawal rates in students could also be an indicator as to whether this type of support is encouraging them, is able to act as a way to reduce a barrier to success and to graduation and completion. But measurement along the way is going to be very much determined on student feedback as well. So making sure that intervention and the impacts are driven by what students are telling us they need. They were already an integral part of the first food bank that we established. Students told us that they had hesitation and embarrassment about publicly going to and accessing a food bank. And so we worked very, very hard. We took that feedback to heart. We took the data that they shared with us, and we ensured that our food bank that is established now in downtown Norfolk doesn't look like a food bank, doesn't feel like one. It feels like a restaurant when you go in there. And so that feedback was incredibly important and will continue to be important in this type of work. To reflect on this project and to reflect on this type of assessment and what this community health needs assessment would entail, I would say that this is a complex issue. And to me, in my mind, it requires compassion and collaboration from various stakeholders, and again, primarily driven by our students' responses and what their needs are. The biggest takeaway that I have in terms of this population health need is for in academia and education in general, for us to remember that health needs are undervalued as a variable to understanding barriers to student success. We can't expect our students to excel and reach their potential when they have unmet basic health and safety needs. This is just a page with some of my references that I cited throughout this presentation. Thank you so much for listening.